Chapter 4 Pesa, Month 4 of 3818. Korden Kairo, Tower of Faith. The flag of Shiliei fluttered at the stern of the Kraustedt, bright against the dusk. The Andolian-built ship cut a proud figure in the harbour, but pride had not spared them bribes. Korden had watched his father, the Dark Knight, hand over 2 gold coins to berth at a dock, then 2 more to enter before sundown. Another 500 tanka had gone to the city's provost for the pirates they had captured. Never had Korden seen his father's jaw set so tight, as if it might crack beneath the strain. The boy had held his tongue, watching quietly as honor was traded away for coin. Back home, such men would have faced judgment before the Holy Domen herself. In Shiliei, corruption like this could never take root, or so he had been taught by his Shiliei. To live to serve for justice and honor. These words rose to Korden's lips like a prayer, whispered against the stench of what he had witnessed. He was supposed to withhold judgment, as he had been taught, but the lesson was bitter and hard to keep. The moment they entered Korbell, he longed for the sea again. The city reeked of piss, night soil, dung, and rot, strong enough to make him gag. Streets were slick with mud and filth he could not name. He lifted his boots carefully, unwilling to let them touch more than necessary. He kept to his father's left, with Aja Ayman Rumdal to the right. Behind them marched 50 soldiers in row of 3, armor gleaming, dark glass visors lowered. Another 50 waited at the 4 inns they had rented. The procession drew stairs. Children, thin-limbed with swollen bellies, tagged along the edges of the column. Some wore rags, some nothing at all, but all laughed and shouted. Korden smiled back, relieved, when none dared to reach out to touch him. His father, ever stoic, scanned the crowd with eyes that flickered constantly, left, right, up, down. The elders watched with suspicion. The younger men strained their backs as though measuring themselves against the Domashen soldiers. The weight of so many eyes made Korden's palms sweat, and he clenched his fist, wishing he had worn a doublet with pockets to hide them. At least he looked presentable. A sleeveless brown silk tunic, silver-threaded with animals at the hem, belted simply at the waist, paired with black leggings. Still, here in Korbell, the stares were sharp and fearful. In the Dominion cities, parades had brought cheers, sweets, even flowers. Here, only silence and challenge. If it ever came to blows, Korden knew 50 Domashen could crush 500 of these people, and his father alone could fell an army. Evening fell before the council's steward arrived at the inn to welcome the Dark Knight. Korden listened from the bed, a book open in his lap, though his eyes barely skimmed the page. At the table near the open window, a fleshy man with a heavy brow spoke too loudly, his jewelry jingling with every wave of his drooping arms. "I never thought I would live to see war in the Dominion," the steward boasted. The boy caught the smirk on his lips, the wobble of his chin. It sounded less fear, more like gloating. "Yes," his father answered flatly. "The last war was over 50 years ago. We are only human, after all. And you are always at war," Korden thought. The war between Holtera and Leitrim had already ended before they reached Desenwind. A greedy uncle, a stolen crown, and 4,000 dead. He remembered the earthquake that followed and wondered if it had been punishment. But why would the gods strike Shiliei, and worse, Motngap? He shook the thought away. There were no gods. That was one of the lessons of the Heir Domen. Fear tugged at him, but curiosity was stronger. He wanted to see the city, to find new books for the road. He asked his father for leave, for coin, and promised not to stray far. The Dark Knight refused. Instead, he promised to take Korden himself after business at the Bank of Shiliei. The stewards' meeting had drained him, and the bank was no better. There, Korden learned that Shiliei owed Erdelon's king 400 gold coins for passing through to Shiliei's enclave in the continent. His father answered that such a sum could buy 2 or even 4 new merchant ships. Korden had seen the chest himself, coins spill across the floor of the Soishel, gathered from every corner of the known world. Soon they would be melted down, purified and reminted with the image of the Holy Domen. Gold was rare to see in exchange. In Shiliei and Desenwin, the tanka was common, but even that grew scarce beyond their borders. Elsewhere, copper ruled. Korden and his father drew eyes wherever they walked, even beneath the flickering tallow lamps. Days without bathing had dulled their appearance. Their skin stayed smooth, their clothes sharp and finely cut, and the faint trace of perfume clung to them. Without the army behind them, the stairs turned softer. People smiled, women and maiden giggled behind bolder friends. From a balcony, one woman even lifted her skirt in invitation. The shadow hid most of her, but his father pulled him closer and tried to cover his eyes. Korden wiggled away, annoyed. He had no interest in such things. Her things. The book he sought proved harder to find. No stalls or shops in Korbell seemed to sell them, though his father had warned him beforehand. Still, the dark night humoured the chase, following his son through winding streets until the merchant began packing away the goods. By then the air had grown cold, and Korden had pulled on his father's leather doublet. Bookless though he was, he still counted the evening a pleasant one. He had wanted to try the street foods too, but his father warned him off, muttering about running stool with the certainty of experience. Instead, Korden bought a wooden board with 2 dice. He didn't know the rules of the game, but he would learn, he told himself. His father snorted at the purchase, and Korden's cheeks burned when he pressed 300 copper coins into the young man's hand. What? He demanded, only to see the old knight smile and ruffle his hair. The board, it turned out, was worth no more than 80. The carving was rough, not fine at all, but Korden could not bring himself to regret it. Copper meant little compared to tanka, 100 to 1 at best, and his father earned more in a day than most men did in a month, 260 to be exact. He needed the board more than the merchant needed fair dealing, or so he told himself. By the time they returned to the inn, most of the Domashen were already asleep. Even with 4 inns, the soldier had to share rooms, 2 to a bed at a time. A few still stood watch outside, snapping to attention when the dark night passed. He gave them nothing more than a nod. From farther down the street came the thrum of music, fast, bright, and carried by drunken laughter. But when the city's bell tolled 4 times, the sound died. Shouts fell away, leaving only the shuffle of late-night travelers. From his window, Korden watched them, drunks staggering on unsteady knees, carts drawn by mules, loads swaddled in wax flax and felted wool. His new wooden board sat on a table beside him, its strange dice and disc waiting. He stared at it, uncertain where to even begin. He had eaten, though only a little, sweet rice with milk and honey, lamb skewers brushed with spice. The innkeeper had served him herself, a broad-toothed blackened woman with a chest like a barrel. She had smiled at him, all fawning praise for how handsome he was and how lucky she felt to meet the son of her favorite customer. Korden had glanced at his father in surprise. Stranger still, the dark knight only smiled and pushed his son's hair back, as though showing him off. The gesture embarrassed him, yet warmed him all the same. Neither of them know how to play the game. The board came with 2 dice and 4 coin-sized discs, but no instruction. Back home he had shelves full of games, the ancient game of chess, parade, pluck ball, and more besides. Yet even with the new board before him, he found himself wishing instead for a book. His father told him to sleep, and when Korden refused, warned he would regret it tomorrow. Glancing over, he saw the knight rinsing suds from his hair in the narrow wooden tub. Korden had bathed first, too shy to strip before his father, and had asked the man to turn away. The dark knight had obliged, only shaking his head as if amused. Leaning against the window, Korden let his thoughts drift homeward. By now, he reckoned, it would be midnight in Shiliei. His prince was likely asleep, curled behind his fat orange cat of his. The image made Korden ache. He thought of the earthquake, of the rebuilding he could not help with, of his mother's embrace and his sister's endless chatter. He thought of his friends, of the celebration he was missing. The whole city lit for Princess and Haley's birthday. The longing stung, and with it came the familiar resentment for his father, who had pulled him away from it all. Korden woke only briefly when his father rose. The bed felt suddenly cold without the man's heavy warmth, but the blanket had been tucked neatly around him before he left. The boy drifted back into sleep, and the dream returned of that kiss. In his mind it was softer this time, sweeter, no longer just a petty act to spite his mother. The sweetness lingered until a rough voice pulled him awake. His father stood over him in full armor, helm tucked beneath his arm. "I warned you," the man muttered, as he hauled him gently but firm from the bed. Korden's eyes were still blurry, his body sluggish. He flushed at the pressure stirring in his trousers, but if his father had noticed, he gave no sign. Instead, a basin of clean water had been set out, waiting for him to wash the sleep from his face. There was no time for a proper meal. His father ordered him to dress quickly and wait outside. Dawn was breaking, though the moon still clung pale to the sky. Across it stretched the heavens bridge, a thin silver arc that gleamed from horizon to horizon. Korden sat on the inn stoop while the friendly matron bustled over with a roll of bread stuffed with spiced chicken and cheese crumbs. It was the best thing he had eaten since leaving home. She laughed when he praised it and promised to tell her son, who worked in the kitchen. "Your father will be here soon," a Dalmatian soldier said, stopping when Korden asked after him. Behind him, the company was spilling into the streets, armor clattering, boots grinding dust. Some men stretched stiff-limbed, others leaned against door frames or murmured in circles until a captain hushed them. One soldier sat beside Korden and tried to start a conversation. The boy answered politely, though he doubted they would ever be friends. The sun had only just crested the horizon when the dark night returned. He rode at the head of the column, 10 men at his back, and beside them Aja Aimon. Behind them came the rest of his command, 20 Kurans in all, one harnessed to the great crate brought from his ship, and a string of sturdy rented horses for those who could not claim a beast. The soldiers stirred into motion at once. Veterans stepped forward to seize the Kurans, leaving the younger men to take the horses. Of the 3 Kurans set aside, one was given to Korden. At the knight's signal, the column began to move. Hooves struck the cobble, wheels rumbled, and dust lifted into the pale morning. 4 riders flanked the crate, wings of their beasts half unfurled, while the rest of the soldiers marched 2 by 2. The Kurans themselves made little noise, only the soft, steady whispers of wings angled skyward. The streets lay empty, even the beggars under awning still lost in sleep. Only the city watch observed them from high towers, silent shadows against the paling sky. Korden had never felt safer or prouder than when he straddled his Kuran. There were creatures of legend, nearly indestructible, older than the kingdoms themselves. Books had told him there were no more than 16,000 in the world, and that Shiliei held over half of them, To ride one was to carry a piece of that power. It had been 4 days of riding and camping by the wayside. They had crossed the King's Road, the Lord's Road, the Silver Road, and the Troll Road, but the White Serpent Road had been the most treacherous. Cut into the side of mountains and cliff, the path forced them into single file. The drop below vanished into a forested valley, so far down the trees looked no taller than moss. A pebble clink of Korden's wide-rimmed metal hat once, and somehow that frightened him more than the abyss at his side. Kurans, despite their vast wings, could only glide, and even so, he found himself pressed against the mountain wall, bladder tight, holding his breath each time he passed an oncoming wagon. Donkeys and horses plodded along as though the valley did not exist, and their drivers never glanced at the void. What truly unsettled him, though, was the wind. It came rushing from the front or striking from behind, and each blast threatened to push him towards the edge. He tried not to show fear. The Dalmatian riders had on their dark glass visors that hid their eyes, and he could not tell whether they shared his terror. Twice his father had asked if he was well. Each time, the man's smiling calm annoyed Korden as much as it soothed him. "I'm fine," he had grunted through clenched teeth. He already dreaded the thought of riding the road again on the return journey. The Serpent Road ended at last, giving way to the Straight Road, a name as plain as its form. It stretched in a clean line through endless ranks of softwood trees, their crowns high enough to rake the clouds, their tops sighing in the wind. The cobblestone here were worn, surrendering to moss, mud, and grass. The air was cool and damp, carrying the scent of greenery and song of small streams tumbling downhill. Here, Korden rode beside Aja Aimon Rumdal. The man was only 30, born in Desenwin, and had never once set foot in Shiliei. Anointed by the holy Heir Domen during her summer stay in his city, Aimon confessed he had always dreamt of seeing Shiliei, but would not leave his mother behind. Shiliei's gate would not permit her entry. Korden found himself telling tales of his gleaming city, the Black Tower, the 20 Madans, all forbidden to be painted. He spoke of adventures with the prince, careless enough to draw a quick glance from his father. When Aimon asked why he had joined the journey, Korden hesitated. "For greater adventure," he finally said, "with my father." The truth stuck in his throat. Telling him he was in self-exile for daring to kiss the prince felt wrong, in the face of the shining picture he had just painted of Shiliei. Mutarum lay in the shadow of tall white mountains, with green hills rising along as high. A vast lake spread beside it, smooth as glass beneath the setting sun. The city wall gleamed in the light, plastered white so they caught and reflected the last golden rays. For all its beauty, the place felt subdued. Hammers still rang, chisels still struck stone, hooves still echoed on cobbles, yet Mutarum lacked the restless energy of other cities they had passed. Korden could not say why. Perhaps it was nothing more than the melancholy of the afternoon. At the gates, riding his Kuran behind his father, with Aja Rumdal close by, Korden saw a tall man waiting for them. His muscles ripped as he spread his arms in greeting. "Welcome," he said, in a deep, resonant voice. He looked much the same age as Korden's father, though his beard was thick and black, his hair curled and falling mostly to his right, and his eyes shone like onyx. Korden felt his cheeks burn as he stared, unable to look away. The man wore a strange robe, one white sleeve draping across half his chest, while the other side and arm remained bare. A golden necklace with green gem hung at his throat, catching the light and lending him an almost radiant air. "Thank you, Lord Joffren," Korden father said as he dismounted and bowed his head. I look forward to your visit every year, Dark Knight, sworn protector of her holy domain. The Lord replied, smiling broadly. He stood a head taller than Daman, and his warmth drew a smile from Korden as well. Their meeting at their gatehouse stopped traffic. The column of Domitian behind them came to a halt, and townsfolk gathered to stare. Korden heard whispers, Shiliei. His father called out, Korden, with a slight frown. The boy understood at once, slid down from his kuran and took his place at his father's side. Meet my son, Korden. The boy bowed his head. Many blessings on your house, Lord. He faltered, unsure of the name. I'm Lord Joffrin of the house of Kersuron. The man said, voice steady as stone but softened by a melodic accent. My ancestors name us after the holy Heir Domen Corsica the Ninth. Her Holiness saved my people from annihilation and brought us here. The people of Her Holiness are always welcome in my city. Korden bowed again, unable to find words. The fortress of Lord Joffrin spread as a complex of many buildings, gardens and moss-draped trees. Path wound through a shaded courtyard, and in one of the larger halls he gave them quarters. It could hold 60 men sleeping shoulder to shoulder, while the rest of their company spread into smaller chambers nearby. Korden had hoped for a bed of his own, but once again he shared with his father. At least the smell of sweat, soiled clothes, and campfire no longer clung to them. Father, Korden whispered into the dark, staring at the carved wooden ceiling above. A window shaped like a tree let in pale light, the glass leaves scattering faint pattern across the room. The father grunted in reply. I don't need to be here. The princess mother doesn't even know I kissed him. Daman sighed, shifting on the bed beside him. Your mother told the princess seneschal what you two did. I should have warned her, but I have my oaths. His voice carried a weight Korden had rarely heard in it, a tired sadness. Korden turned his head. In the faint glow he could see the whites of his father's eyes. You speak as if she would kill me for kissing her son. She is the holy womb. The thought struck him as absurd. The princess mother had no true power in the palace. His father's worry seems nothing but an overreaction. Daman drew his son into his arms. The embrace firm, though less comfortable than any pillow. When she was 16, he said quietly. The princess mother pushed her seneschal down the stairs. The woman changed her story once she stood before the holy domain. There are those in the palace who would break the law for her, only because we call her the holy womb. Then why not tell the holy domain? Korden pressed, voice rising. Or I could speak to the Heir Domen myself. Son, the Dark Knight interrupted, pushing him gently back. It is not so simple. Go to sleep. It was not an answer Korden could accept. He longed to demand more, yet the weight of what he had heard chilled him. An attempted murder. If such a thing could be true, then perhaps his father was right. Resting against Daman's chest was uncomfortable, but it felt safer than lying alone. My poor prince. Korden's thought turned to the boy he had kissed. What hell it must be having such a woman for a mother. It had been 54 days since Korden left home. He missed his mother, even his half-wit sister, and most of all, he pined for his prince. Now at their destination, his father had asked if he would rather remain in Mutaram and wait for his return. The boy had only glared at the Dark Knight, daggers in his eyes, unable to speak. His father sensed the anger, or seeing it plainly, had smirked. It's fine if you wish to come, the man said, voice easy, but it will be cold and dizzying. From their bedroom window, the mountain of the Tower of Faith had been visible, though never the tower itself. The mountain was half covered in snow, its ice gleaming pink and orange under the dawn. The precious cargo they carried no longer required a heavy guard, once they left the city. From there to the mountain, only the Kurans would escort it. 20 riders in all, including Korden. He had overheard Aja Rumdal question his father about the boy's presence, but the dark night gave no answer. The road from the city to the mountain gate, his father told him, had been paved by Shiliei, and so the ride was smoother than most. With only Kurans drawing the caravan, the pace was faster too. The absence of clattering hoofs made the journey quieter, save for the steady clang of armor. The gate stood at the pass, tall and bare, without adornment, nothing like the grand gates of home. It was shut, and 5 armored men stood watch before it. A Domitian rode up to the dark knight's right, unfurled the banner of Shiliei, and held it high. The company halted. Another Domitian moved to the left, dismounted, and accepted the pen sigil from his father. Korden still could not understand the pen sigil's working. His father was oath-bound to never reveal the secret of the tube-shaped device, nor could any of its wardens. Yet Korden dreamed one day of earning the right to carry one, as his father did, though by what deed he could not imagine. The path beyond the gate was as his father had warned, cold, narrow, and dizzying. The colonnade wound along cliffside, steps buried in snow, where mist blurred the world into fog or cloud. Korden's chest burned with every breath, each inhale like 1,000 pinpricks. His thighs ached, begging him to stop, but 6 Domitians bore the heavy crate without complaint, trading places only after hundreds of steps, and even his father took his stand. Korden could not shame himself by falling behind. He slipped anyway, landing on hands and knees. His father helped him up, while the rest of the company pressed on. When the noise of armor and labored breath had faded, Korden looked up with tears in his eyes. His father only smiled, gentle as ever, and steadied him. "How about we rest for a while?" the dark knight said. Korden nodded, fighting to hold back tears. His father even offered to carry him the rest of the way, but Korden refused. Hand in hand, the two emerged from the colonnade onto a wide brick terrace. Korden leaned heavy on his father, barely able to walk. 12 Domitians were scattered across the yard, helms off, drinking water or lying on their backs as the resident healing Rohisar tended to them. Aja Rumdal hurried over at once, fussing over Korden's condition. The boy could not say what hurt the most, his chest, his legs, his feet. Instead, he gazed outwards at fog rolling over mountain peaks like ocean waves, the sun blazing above, and the Tower of Faith itself rising from the summit, round and stout, crowned with a wooden dome. "Korden," Rumdal prompted. "Sorry, I don't know. I feel better now," Korden said. "Just my legs, I think." "Then a warm bath and rest will do you good." Rumdal patted his arm before returning to the others. Survival at this altitude would have been impossible without the Domasar, the only battle bender on the continent. With anointed magic, he heated a central water tube that kept the tower warm. The bath a welcome relief, but the rough massage from his father left him sore and worse. The gentle one from Rumdal left him red-faced with embarrassment when his body betrayed him. Thankfully, Rumdal said nothing, though he had clearly noticed. The night Korden fell asleep on his single bed, stomach full and pride tattered, but at least with some dignity intact. He was awakened by a distant rumble, growing louder until it shook the tower. There could be no doubt the Heir Domen had arrived. Korden leapt to his feet, ignoring the pain of blisters and aching muscles, and ran to the top of the tower. Moonlight spilled through the half-open dome. There stood the Heir Domen beside his father, crimson wings furled high, a soft red glow radiating from her spine, She wore a backless bodice laced with shimmering pearls, with fitted trousers and ankle-high boots. "Korden," she said gently, noticing him, "did I wake you?" "You should not be here," his father murmured, his way of reminding him to be respectful. "He can stay," the Heir Domen replied, adjusting the mechanism of the looking device. Korden longed to ask what she was doing, but held his tongue. Another man entered, the warden of the tower, bearing a thin sheet of glass upon a golden tray. "Thank you, warden," said the Heir Domen, her voice sweet and steady. She lifted the glass with nimble fingers. Korden saw it bend like paper, though it did not break. Before he could glimpse more, she slid it into the machine. With a flick of her wrist, the dome closed. Darkness fell as her wings ceased their glow. Silence reigned, stretching long as an hour. Then her wings began to pulse. Crimson light flooded the chamber. Korden shielded his eyes. When his vision returned, he saw the Heir Domen studying the glass, her expression grave. "It is here," she whispered. "It is finally arriving." Korden could not tell if her tone was dread or wonder. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you would comment, that will help out a lot with the algorithm. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.